In this video, we'll demonstrate how to use the Site Integrators custom pipeline component in BizTalk to load files into Hadoop HDFS. To begin with, let's add a SendPort item to our BizTalk project in Visual Studio. So we'll go to Add, New Item. We will select Send Pipeline, and we will call this new Send Pipeline we'll call this orders to Hadoop. Now on our pipeline item workspace, we'll go to our toolbox. We'll drag and drop the Site Integrators Hadoop WebHDFS pipeline component into our pre-assembly area here. Now, once we have that onto our pipeline item, now we need to configure the properties for our pipeline component. Let's start with the name of our Hadoop cluster or our Hadoop Web HDFS gateway. So we'll type that in here. We'll also put in the path of where we want to save our data. Also the file extension that we want our files to be once they're uploaded to HDFS. So since we're just processing XML orders within Hadoop, we'll just put the XML extension there. We need to specify how many replicas we would like to replicate on our Hadoop cluster, so we'll leave that as the default 3. And we need to specify a username that has permission to write files to HDFS. So in this demonstration, we'll just use yarn. Now here we have a setting called partition remote path by date, and since we want to partition our data within Hadoop, we'll set this to true. Then we can select the partition format. So we have several options here. We have, if we just want to store the data within a folder called year, we just select the year format. If we want to do year and month, we will select this format. But what we want to do is year, month, and day. So we'll select year, month, and day as our partition. And we also have the option here to specify to override an existing file. With this particular BizTalk project, we'll be using the ID name, the message ID, as the file name. So this is not necessary, so it will always be unique. And we'll just leave the content of the content type as text plain. It's an XML, but it's just in a sense, a text file that we're in the XML format that we're uploading. And the block size and the buffer size, we'll leave these as the default, which is our 0. So now that we have set the properties of our pipeline component, let's save our project. Let's do a save all. Okay, let's compile our project or build. Okay, the project was successfully built. So now let's deploy our project to BizTalk. So we'll do deploy. Okay, and the project deployed successfully. So let's go to BizTalk. So let's refresh. And here is our new BizTalk app. The first thing we need to do is set up a receive port in a receive location. So let's do that. And here we'll just take the default name that BizTalk creates for us. Now we want to add our location. So, and we'll be picking the files up from a file location. So our transport type would just be a file. Then we'll go to configuration to browse to that location. And we will be dropping in XML file, so we'll leave that file mask as XML. We'll apply that. Do OK. So we have our new receive port in our new receive location, and they're disabled for now. Now let's add our send port. So we want to add a new static one-way send port. So we'll leave this name as the default also. But here we want to select the transport type as a WCF-WebHttp. Now we want to select our pipeline component. Now if we go and edit our pipeline component, you can see that the properties that we entered within Visual Studio are still there. So we'll leave those as we define them in Visual Studio. So we'll cancel that. So next we need to configure our import address. Now since we entered our information regarding the Hadoop WebHDFS gateway within our pipeline component, it doesn't matter if you leave this as localhost because we're building that URL within the pipeline component based on the properties or parameter that we entered into the pipeline. So we'll just leave that as localhost. Then here we'll put put, because we are doing a put method or CRUD to our web HDFS gateway. And binding we'll leave as, so we'll select the default on everything here. So I think we're good here. So we'll do apply and we'll do OK. And one thing that we need to do is route our inbound messages to this send port. So that's one thing that we'll do here. We'll go to filters. Then we'll select BTS receive port name. And we'll paste in the name of our receive port and do OK. Okay. Now we're ready to start our app, but before we do, let's go to our HDFS cluster and go to Hue and look in our HDFS folders. So if we refresh here, and as you see, there are no subfolders under orders, which is under our data directory. So if we go back to BizTalk, and you'll notice that when we configured our send port pipeline, we specify data in orders as our remote path. Okay. So now let's start our BizTalk app. And as you noticed, our receive location is green and enabled, and our send port has started. Okay. Now let's go to, and this is our drop location. This is our receive port location here in the POS system, the point of sale system, in the in folder. But we need some test data, so we'll get some test data here. A text XML file. Now this file contains many orders, and actually let's go back. In our receive location, one thing that we need to do is add our orders debatching, because that XML file contains many orders. We want to debatch those orders into single files. So we'll select our order debatching pipeline component and apply that. Now we'll go back to our sample file here, copy this guy, and go out to our in folder, paste that there. Okay, BizTalk picked it up. Now let's go to Hue and look within HDFS. So we'll refresh. Okay, we see the year, we see the month, and we see the day, and there are our orders, all debatched into separate files. Now if we go back to BizTalk and we actually go to our send port, and one thing that you're probably thinking is that, Sam, we could have upload files into Hadoop using this WCF-WebHttp without the pipeline component. That's true, but the issue is that we want to partition our data by year, month, and day within Hadoop. Now BizTalk does have macros that you can use for date timestamp. Let's say, for example, you want to save your file with a date timestamp. There's a macro that you can use within BizTalk to do that. However, BizTalk does not contain a macro where we can just, let's say, parse the year or just the month or just the day. So that's why this pipeline component was created. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and have a nice day.